James. Today's Algebra Nation video is going to be on workbook page 32. While you are enjoying this Algebra Nation video, yours truly, the crazy math teacher, is going to go grab a tissue and wipe away the tears. Then again, while I'm getting a tissue, I'll go ahead and get a whole box of tissues for those New York Giants fans out there. 0-4 if you're a Giants fan. I guess as a Bears fan, life could be a lot worse. Right, Giant fans?
They're going to take two steps. 6w plus 12 equals -1. We're going to need to solve for w. The first step, subtract 12 from both sides. We're left with 6w. The 12s, once again, they cancel, equals -1 minus 12 more. -1 minus 12 more will give you -13. 6 times w equals -13. Go ahead and divide both sides by 6. The 6's simplify, and we're left with w equals -13 over 6. So in this case, we have w equals -13 over 6, and the way we solve this is ready. We subtracted, and then we divided. We subtracted, and then we divided. This sounds kind of similar to another process you guys might have done, okay? Something called maybe, I don't know, PEMDAS. However, PEMDAS is used to simplify an equation, and when we're solving, how do these relate? So if you have any ideas, post on the wall below and see if you can figure out the connection between simplifying with PEMDAS and solving an equation. Because here, we subtracted and then we divided. So again, I'll leave it up to you to discuss and see if you can find that connection. But once again, let's look at this equation one more time. 6w plus 12 equals -1. Start by subtracting 12 from both sides. The 12s cancel. And you're left with 6w equals -13. Then you divide both sides by 6. The 6's simplify. And your final answer would be w equals -13 over 6. So that's the process, once again, to show you how to solve the equation, in this case for w. But now, one more time, I want you to try this next one. Give it a try. I'm going to hit the pause button one more time. Solve for g. Step 1. Add 3 to the other side. We're trying to get g by itself. -2g minus 3 plus 3. Cancel. -8 plus 3. If you're not sure, you've got this calculator. Let's use it. 8. Make it a negative. There it is. Add 3 more. And we get -5. Just in case. -5. -2g equals -5. -2 multiplied by g, -2 times g, we're going to divide by -2. The -2's simplify, and we're left with g equals negative over negative is positive, and that would be 5/2. But let's say the answer happens to be a decimal. How would you make that a decimal? Well, once again, I would just use a calculator. 5 divided by 2, and you get 2.5 instead. It's the same number, just written in decimal form. So in case you have a decimal instead of a fraction for the final answer, you can use that calculator to figure it out. And also, if you wanted to figure out -5 over -2 and figure out if it was positive or negative, once again, check this out. 5, make it a negative, divided by 2, make it a negative, equals, and you get a positive 2.5. Just to verify that you have the correct sign, that it is positive. So now we've done one step, we've done 2 steps, and now...
Before we go on in the video, make sure you have finished all 4 equations on the left-hand side of page 32. I know they did 2 of them in the video. Make sure you do the other 2 on the left-hand side of the page for page 32.
Here is the process for a long parentheses, we're going to distribute if needed. If you see parentheses, you need to distribute. Then, combine like terms on each side of the equation. After that, move your variables to one side, your numbers to the other, and divide if needed. One more little thing. If you think of the equal sign as the line from one side to the other, for addition subtraction, over the line, change the sign, but just for addition and subtraction. Multiplication and division, I kept the same sign. Notice that. If you haven't yet, notice that when I'm solving these questions, adding and subtracting, I change the sign, because the opposite of addition is subtraction, and the opposite of subtraction is addition. But multiplying and dividing would be the same sign, so take note of that. Let's do one. Here we go. This one would be asked to solve for y. Step 1, distribute. There's no parentheses, so we go on to the next step. Combine like terms on each side of the equation. On the left, I see I can combine the y's. We have like terms. Negative 3y plus 5y, or 5y minus 3y would give you 2y minus 4 equals, nothing to combine here, negative 7 plus 4y. Now, variables to one side, numbers to the other, and divide. Slow down. Variables to one side. I'm going to move my y's to the left. Instead of 4y, I will subtract 4y. So instead of adding 4y, I'm going to subtract 4y to get my variables to the left. These cancel. 2y minus 4y would be negative 2y minus 4 equals negative 7. I move my variables to one side, now my numbers to the other. As I move my variables to the left, I want my numbers to the right. So that means I would add 4. The opposite of subtracting 4 would be adding 4 to both sides. Negative 2y. The 4's cancel. Negative 7 plus 4. Got a glare. Negative 3. There we go. Lastly, divide both sides by what? Divide both sides by negative 2. So now I have the negative 2 simplify. We have y equals negative 3 over negative 2. A negative over a negative, we learned from the last page, will give you a positive. And if they wanted a decimal, you would put it in your calculator. Do be careful, though, because you know when it's multiple choice, they would have 3 halves, which is the answer. They would have 2/3. They'd have positive answers and negative answers. Remember, your goal is you're trying to get y isolated, so you're dividing by the number in front and putting it on the denominator of the other side. You're dividing both sides by the number in front of the variable. So be very careful when you're solving these types of equations. Also, keep in mind, I said you can move your variables to one side, your numbers to the other. In this case, and for most cases, I like to move my variables to the left. But you could also move them to the right. So watch this for just a minute. I'm going to solve the same equation right at this step, but I'm going to go ahead and move my variables to the other side. So instead of moving them to the left, I'm going to move them to the right instead. I'm going to take this step in blue and rewrite it. 2y minus 4 equals negative 7 plus 4y. So now, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 2y over to the right. Again, I'm moving my variables to one side, in this case to the right. The 2y's cancel. Negative 4 equals negative 7. 4y minus 2y is 2y. Remember though, when you move your variables to one side, you have to move your numbers to the other. Meaning I would add 7 to both sides. Negative 4 plus 7 will give you 3. The 7's cancel. And lastly, what do I divide by? The number in front of the variable, which in this case you're dividing by 2. Make sure you're dividing by the number in front of the variable. And y equals 3 halves. We already knew that though, but I just wanted to show you, as long as you move your variables to one side, your numbers to the other, and divide by the number in front of the variable, you're solving and getting the answer. Let's do one more here. I want to do
See how they got the same answer? It's kind of like the New York Giants. It doesn't matter who they play. You're going to get the same answer every time. A Giants loss. Ouch. Let's take a brain break for a second. I wish the Bears had been that smart yesterday. That's one smart bird. All right, now let's finish up.
Distribute. I see parentheses. So you ready? Step 1. Distribute. 2 times G, 2 times 5. Remember the distributive property. You multiply the number on the outside by everything on the inside. 2 times G is 2G. 2 times 5 is 10. And then the rest I leave alone. Step 1, I distributed. Next, I combine like terms on each side of the equation. To the left, nothing to combine. To the right, A. Negative 4G plus G. We can do that. Negative 4G plus, remember, what is G? That's 1G. Negative 4G plus 1G is negative 3G. 2G plus 10 equals negative 7 minus 3G. Now, I'll move my variables to one side, my numbers to the other, and divide if needed. So next up, I'm going to move my variables to the left. I'll add 3G to both sides. 2G plus 3G is 5G, plus 10 equals negative 7, and the 3G's cancel. Remember, you can pause the video if you need to write this down. You can always pause. You can replay this if you need to. You can go back, go forward. Pause it for a second if you need to write this down, and then proceed on. You've got that ability. Use it. I have moved my variables to one side. Now I'll move my numbers to the other. So instead of adding 10, I would subtract 10. 5G, 10 minus 10, cancel. Negative 7 minus 10 more will be minus 17. If you need to, break out that calculator. What do I divide by?